same guy.
I thought there were like 3 people on the ballot at one point.
Guy.
But yeah, so I didn't see him play back in his day. I've watched, or I've read a lot of the Steve Omes coverage because of last year when I was looking through information to do my ballots. I know a lot about him, but I don't actually know that much about Huey's reign. So why don't you? I'm curious, like, what made him such a dominant player in his day?
That's a trickier question. I mean, the thing I can tell you is, if you ask John Finkel, you ask Kai Bude, you ask Gabriel Nassif, who the best players in the history of the game were, they've all got Billy in their top 5.
Wow, that is impressive.
I mean, I remember the cabal of people. I was starting to do coverage when I first got to Wizards, and if I had to go ask somebody what's the right play in this situation, you'd go over and there'd be Bob, John, and Billy. Those are the guys you'd go talk to. Those were just consensus. These are the guys who understand the game better than anybody else who's playing it right now. I mean, he was 4 top 8s in a relatively short run. I think he's got like 10 GP top 8s. Wow. He's got wins in both categories. The thing is, people just lose sight of that because basically the poker boom hit. And he went and he played poker. I mean, it's like,
blame him.
He grew up playing cards, kind of on TV, on stage for money, and then he went off to do that for much higher stakes.
Sure.
And then if he'd started a couple years earlier, if the poker boom had come a couple years later, I don't think anybody would question that he's a Hall of Famer. And so, I mean, I look at it and it's not like his stats are bad. His stats are plenty good enough. And he had that run where he just was one of the best couple players for, a good 2-3 year stretch.
Well, that's pretty interesting. No, I appreciate the catch up on Huey because I think a lot of viewers out there don't know much about him, and I know I'm going to do more research before I put my ballot, obviously, but I don't actually know too much about him. So that's really.
If I had to have one guy play that match, I'd pick Billy.
Wow.
I would pick William Jensen to play that match.
That's impressive. That's very impressive. I agree. Anton is I think you have to vote for Anton this year. You don't have to, but I was really surprised he did not get in last year.
Anton's in. I mean, Shuhei will get in. And then I think Steve-O and Billy are the others. That group of 4, I've seen a lot of people looking at that group of 4 as, okay, this is the catch-up year. Shuhei's the new guy that deserves in. Let's get these 3 guys into the Hall, and a lot of debate over the 5th pick. I mean, I think that I saw somebody Twitter that Chapin and Heasy are going to know each other out of the Hall of Fame. I'm sure they're such, they grew up together. They're from Michigan. They have similar, I'm a deck builder, I'm a player. I'm afraid that those 2 guys are just going to split what's left of the votes, and I don't know that a 5th player will get in.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be 4 for those core 4. That's at least what I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like, especially the 5th one, like you're saying, that is such a high debate vote. There's so many people can put there, especially on the player committee. A lot of people want to vote for the Friends, want to vote for OSEP or Gerard.
I think OSEP's totally in the mix for that as well.
Right, yeah, definitely.
My first instinct was to vote OSEP. I was sort of surprised how few people have OSEP on that part of their list.
Yeah.
So we got a match going on? Or
we have a match going on.
How does this work?
Heading into it right now. It'll switch here in just a second.
Cool.
And here we are. So we're entering into round number 7. I'm Gavin Verhey, joined here by Randy Bueller in the booth. On your right, we have Alexander West. Alex is playing, looks like a blue-white control deck.
Spell Pierce, Mana Leak, Spreading Seas, O-Ring, Day of Judgment. Yeah, it's pretty blue-white control-ish. 4 Baneslayers.
4 Baneslayers. Karn Liberated, Gideon Jura. No Squadron Hawks, no Swords, just straight blue-white control.
Yeah, that's right.
On your left, kind of one of the boogeymans of the format, green-red Valakut. A little different than normal, though. He's got Genesis Wave. He has Karn Liberated. He's got some main deck. He's got a main deck Obstinate Baloth to Green Sun Zenith for. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out. Definitely much different than any other deck we've seen.
What are their records? Do we know?
I believe they're both X1.
X1
at this point.
What is this, round 7?
This is round 7. I believe they're both 6-1. I'll confirm, but
there's the Solemn Simulacrums you're talking about.
Yeah.
Can I keep calling him Jens?
Yes, definitely. Sad robot Jens.
Yeah.
Good times. And so Alex plays a Colonnade and passes.
Does everybody play Overgrown Battlement now in Valakut?
Yeah, I think you kind of have the core 12 suite of 4 Rampant Growth, 4 Battlement, 4 Explore.
Yes.
And the way the decks like to play out is they go turn 2 Accelerator, turn 3 either another Accelerator or Solemn, and then turn 4 Primeval Titan, and try and carry the game away from there. So looks like
it's been a while with the play-by-play. So hope I won't embarrass myself too much.
So looks like Kale Satta Houghton has 3 lands versus Alexander West also 3 lands. Alex has a tapped Celestial Colonnade, and Satta Houghton goes for a Rampant Growth. The interesting thing to watch in this matchup, I feel, is Alex has 8 counter spells, and it's going to be interesting to see how he uses them. He can either try and save them and buy time by waiting for Kale to get up on mana so we can Mana Leak, or so he has to play around Mana Leak on Primeval Titan, or he can hit all of his ramp spells early. Typically, I think Alex will probably try and hit all the ramp spells early, but I'm not sure exactly how Alex plans to play this. They're both currently 5-1, or 6. So, yeah, with 3 rounds left, including this one.
Thought the rampant growth might get countered. Obviously,
yeah.
Holds it out. May I please?
The permission face, as it were. Looking at Alex's hands, I think I see a Baneslayer Angel in there, a Tectonic Edge.
Mostly land, though, right?
Yeah, mostly lands. Not what you want to see against the Valakut deck, especially because Kale Satta Hoten's deck hand currently looks pretty stocked. I see quite a few spells in there, a couple lands, and that's all that deck needs to start generating action. I see a Zenith, which could go find that Primeval Titan. And looks like he's going to go for a Battlement of his own, which Alex will likely let resolve. Alex is a very meticulous player. He'll take his time for every decision, and he's going to make sure that he makes the right call. And he's going to, as a product of that, he'll always be bluffing counter magic. Kale Satta Hoten also goes for a Rampant Growth there. How do you feel about how this matchup will play out in general, Randy? It's so you have the kind of traditional like control versus combo-y mid-range ramp kind of thing. Normally the control deck is favored, but Primeval Titan can really put you over the top if it ever resolves. Who do you think has the edge here?
Yeah, I mean, the Valakut deck obviously has a lot more reach than your typical sort of, mid-speed red-green deck, right? This is not exactly large monsters the blue-white deck can feast on. I mean, before the bannings, obviously the edge went back to blue-white, but this is what we're here to see, right?
Right.
I mean, this is, okay, who's got the edge now?
Right.
Nobody's quite sure exactly how to build blue-white control. Maybe Alex has got the right version of it. This version does not look as good against Valakut, though.
No.
It seems like he's just slower, right? He's trying to say, I'm going to smash the creature decks, and I'm going to hope the Valakut isn't all that.
Yeah, I agree with that analysis entirely, partially because the Sword of Feast and Famines out of the Cobblade deck really help keep the Valakut Menace under check, because of discarding cards, you strip their last couple cards, there's a Primeval Titan in there.
Right.
Not so much when you have to tap out for a Baneslayer Angel. And if you look at Alex's sideboard...
He's got no clock.
Right, no clock, and so there's no pressure for Satta Hoten to make a move. And if you look at Alex's sideboard, he has 4 Flash Freeze, 4 Stoic Rebuttal, 2 Leyline of Sanctity, so he clearly knows this could be a problematic matchup.
Yeah, this looks like a deck list that punted game 1 against Valakut.
So Kale drops another Overgrown Battlement down.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna accelerate, he's gonna craft the perfect hand, and there's probably not a whole lot that Alex is gonna be able to do about it.
Yeah, I mean, Kale will try and get up to 9, 12 mana to pay for a Mana Leak on a Titan, and
right.
Looks like Alex is probably gonna go for Baneslayer here. Yep, there's Baneslayer. I like the play. I think you have to...
Yeah, he's got no choice.
There's a Beast Within on Baneslayer. You have to be able to be a little bit aggressive, otherwise you're just gonna fall behind, and Alex knows that.
Yeah, I mean, he held his mana up for however long the mana leaks would be threatening, but they're really just not that threatening anymore.
Yeah, let's see, Kale has
3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
yeah.
16 mana.
Oh my. We might see a double Primeval Titan turn here. He has enough for a Titan plus a Zenith for another Titan. It's quite dangerous.
Alex has an island.
Because
islands are supposed to be scary, right?
It's true. If Kale was going to go for both of them this turn, I imagine he would have gone for the Zenith first, so it couldn't be Spell Pierced. So it's quite possible he's just going to lay the one Primeval Titan and then pass the turn. Yeah, the Valakut deck's really interesting because it really revolves around like this one threat. It's all about playing this gigantic 6/6 Primeval Titan, finding a couple lands, and then if your opponent can't deal with it, you win. If not, you have kind of this inevitability with your mountains. It's kind of a strategy we really haven't seen too much in the past.
Yeah, it's not clear that how deliberate it was as a strategy these days.
And there's Green Sun Zenith leaving. I guess he'd have enough to leave 2 up. Here comes Primeval Titan number 2. Shuffles back in the Zenith, and he's going to get 2 mountains and hit Alex for 12 damage. Wow. It's pretty incredible. Looks like he's going to knock down the Beast token.
Oh, the Beast, right.
Yeah. Beast not so threatening, but I guess taking off the board is a reasonable choice. Because the clock is the same. If you go...
Right, he clears a path for his Titans, right?
Yeah, clears a path for the Titans. As long as Alex doesn't have Day of Judgment, which he does have 4 in his main deck, which is worth noting.
Interesting.
And if he has one of those, maybe you could buy a little bit of time, but even then, going to be hard pressed to deal
True.
with.
That may be the one thing that Alex does have going on is his opponent doesn't know his deck list. He's got kind of a unique take on the blue-white control. So Kale's move there does not look like a move from someone who thinks he's playing against 4 Day of Judgment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't think Alex has a day here, but if he did, and he just packs him up. But if he did, he could definitely buy a little bit of time. A lot of players are prepared for the more Caw-Blade lists that don't have
exactly.
days.
All right, now things get a little more interesting. In from the sideboard, 4 times Flash Freeze, 4 times Stoic Rebuttal. Not the core Firewalkers, but the couple ley lines. It's a 10-card sideboard here, you think?
Yeah, 10-card sideboard. And what are we going to cut? Looking at his main deck, I think Oblivion Ring maybe goes.
Sure.
And potentially, Tezzeret's Gambit is really interesting in this deck, I think. So he has it to mainly combo with his 4 Everflowing Chalices. So he probably wants to leave them in as their main form of card draw. At the same time, I don't know what else he's going to cut.
Right.
I mean, he has to be able to win the game somehow. Does he just cut his Baneslayer Angels and decide he never wants to tap on his own turn? He's going to play a longer game with...
I mean, it's expensive spells. The 4 Day of Judgment, I mean, how good is Day? I guess you're happy to day away a couple battlements if push comes to shove, right? Maybe he's willing to tap out for days as they play out their opening hands. I don't know if he wants 4, though.
Yeah, 4 days is a lot. I think you definitely shave the numbers on Oblivion Ring and Day somewhere in there. You probably optimally want 3 to 4 copies.
We're trying to
of
make
those.
10 spots, though.
Yeah. I mean, the only card that seems like maybe you just cut the Baneslayers and you try and get there in the long game with your Planeswalkers and your Colonnades, but it just, you need a way to close sometimes, too, against Valakut. You can't just sit around.
Yeah, I don't think you cut all the Baneslayers. I don't think you cut all the Days. I don't think...
Yeah, I don't know where he's finding room for all this.
How good is Gideon in this matchup?
Gideon is not great. You can cut Gideon over Baneslayer. So maybe you cut the 3 Gideons, like 4 of the Oblivion Rings. That's 7 cards. Karn seems like a pretty reasonable guy in this matchup.
Yeah.
Good endgame trump. So you maybe cut the 4 rings, 3 Gideons, and then you figure out some way, maybe shave a Baneslayer Angel, try and figure out another way to fit those cards in there. Looking over on Kale's side,
right.
Let's see, we have Slagstorm, no. Malaria, no. Inferno Titan, probably not, unless if he thinks that Alex is playing Caw-Blade, we could see the Titan come in.
No, that's true. What does he know? He watched him go. He didn't see anything. Well, he saw the Baneslayer, so he knows that's not a typical Caw-Blade card.
I mean, it's not out of the ordinary. It's not like totally outlandish, but I think he might know something is up.
Right. He might not. It's tough.
Yeah. How much does a single Baneslayer give away? It's interesting, like, watching all these matches, because we know the full information of the deck list. We see these players playing, how much does one card give away? Well, it's hard to tell. Cosmic Butcher of Truth might be a card if he's looking for a long game inevitability. Otherwise, Combust, if he wants to deal with Baneslayer Angel.
You did just blow him away in game 1, too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always something to be said for just, all right, I don't quite understand exactly what your trick is. I'm just going to shuffle up my deck. There are no wrong threats, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing about this Valakut deck is it's just so streamlined, and all your cards are just so redundant that if you start sideboarding out too many cards, you'll end up with a handful of reactive cards, which you just don't want. So, yeah, it's pretty important that you keep your deck streamlined. Although there's some really interesting cards in Kale's deck, like Genesis Wave is a card we haven't seen in Valakut at all. 2-card Liberated is really outside the norm. So I don't know if those are cards he moves in and out as he chooses.
He's got a bunch of 1-up creatures that he can tutor up. So
yeah, he has the Obstinate Baloth, and this board he's got Avenger of Zendikar. Well, looks like the players are picking up their opening hands. Alex will be on the play this game. I think I see a couple lands, 3 or 4 lands in there. Blue card. And I have to think after sideboarding it's better for Alex. I can't imagine this is the first time he's played against Valakut today. And got 10 cards on his board for it. How do you feel about the Combust in this matchup? Do you think that he would leave them in or bring them in if he thinks Baneslayer is going to be an issue, or do you think that Baneslayer might not be such a problematic threat?
I mean, he's got those beasts within slots.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that he's... It's not like he just rolls over to Baneslayer. I don't know. It feels like it's just a fine-tuning decision.
Yeah, I like Beast Within, I think, leaving it in over Combust. Like, hitting a land could be important. If he thinks that he's Caw-Blade, hitting a sword could be very important. Combust, probably not. Yeah, I think these players mostly are playing... I think Kale mostly is playing on sideboard. Maybe the Inferno Titan, maybe the Kozilek. Either way, it looks like Kale is shuffling Alex's deck, and Alex is going down to 6 cards.
Yep.
Certainly not what he wants to see in this matchup. It's always a little demoralizing to have to go down to 6 in a matchup that might not be great, and when you're on the play. That hand, are there 2 lands in that hand, or just the one?
There's not a lot of card advantage in Alex's deck either, right?
No, he's got the Tezzeret's Gambits, and I think that's it.
You know, I'm not going to count spreading seas.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much you have to...
I mean, his strategy of here come 8 counters and a couple ley lines really sort of depends. It's like, okay, can he counter literally every single threat that comes out of Kale's deck? It's like you kind of need some card drawing at some point to keep up with that.
Right, you can't just try and 1-for-1 them forever because that doesn't work out.
Right. I mean, sure, he added 8 counters, but he still only got 16.
And from the looks of it, it seems like Alex did keep a 1-lander. I don't think he played a land on the second turn, judging by the fact that Kale already cracked his Terramorphic Expanse.
Yep.
So this could be a quick and bloody match.
Indeed.
Kale hesitates. Are you sure? Are you sure you're done?
So people were enjoying the Hall of Fame debate. We may be back there pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk some more about it for sure. Such an interesting topic. It's great. It's like the one thing I feel like Magic players really unite and feel passionate about. So Explorer comes down for Kale. Going to put down a 3rd land this turn. I mean, Magic players feel passionate about a lot of things, but really, like in an argument way, like with sports, you just seldom see that happen, and the Hall of Fame really brings it out. A lot of people. It shows how
still no second land.
Passionate they are for their friends. Yeah, still no second land for Alex, and that is rough for the blue-white deck.
Yeah, Twitter's really become, I think, a place where a lot of just Magic conversations are happening. I mean, that certainly wasn't true in the early years of the Hall of Fame. I don't even remember it being this true last year.
I know. I mean, there was some discussion last year, but this year it's just really, heated and interesting to follow, I feel.
Right. I mean, I may be biased just because there's also a lot of debate going on my Facebook friends list, which isn't necessarily available to the public, but the Twitter stuff is.
Yeah, Twitter is really just the greatest thing you can do if you want to be a big part of Magic right now. You can talk to like the greatest players in the game pretty easily just by sending them a tweet, and it's easy to respond, easy to read what's going on. And
or even it's fun for me just to watch people talking with each other.
Same.
To make sure if you're following both sides of a conversation, you get the message, obviously.
All right, so double battlement for Kale.
Yeah, a couple battlements. So I have 8 mana. How many do you have?
You have a discard step. Oh boy. So Alex discards a Tezzeret's Gambit, and assuming Kale has practically anything here. Yeah, that's your Primeval Titan in the front of his hand. This is going to be the end of the line for Alex. That's what it looks like. Plays another battle first, just in case. 6. How about Primeval Titan? All right, and Alex just concedes.
There's the hand.
Shows him the Genesis Wave out of his hand, just in case.
Ugly.
And yeah, that was quick and brutal. I mean, that was a rough hand for Alexander West.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked down, he saw some counter magic, saw Tezzeret's Gambit, saw Chalice, and if he draws a land there, he might be okay, but...
Now, we'll never know how that deck plays sideboard. I was kind of curious, right? You just punt game 1. Well, maybe a complete punt. I mean, it is possible to win, but clearly his deck is set up saying, I'm willing to sacrifice game 1 percentage against Valakut, but I'll have my entire sideboard be devoted to it.
Right, exactly.
One of the problems with that Gambit is, you're 1 mana screw away from just dead.
Right, and it's interesting, the way Alex played in game 2, I almost wonder if he felt like it might have still be unfavorable, because I think I might have mulliganed down to 5 if I felt like my hand was, he clearly took a risk by keeping that hand.
Yep.
He decided, well, I'm going to take a risk, and if I get there, I get there. If I don't, I don't. On the flip side, 1-for-1 when you only have 5 cards isn't that good. Hey, we're back in the booth. I'm Gavin Verhey here with Randy Bueller, and we just watched a lightning-fast matchup between Alexander West and Kale Satta Houghton. Alex did not have much in the way of lands in the second game, and that pretty much kept him under. So looks like we have a little break before going to our next match. So how about we talk a little bit more about the Hall of Fame?
What's your ballot?
Really into that. So my ballot so far, I'm definitely voting for Shuhei. I'm going to vote for Anton for sure. And I'm going to vote for Steve Omes too. Like those are the 3 I have locked at this point.
I'll have to keep working on you for Billy.
Yeah. So I'm going to do more research on him.
Yeah, you should.
I've heard the name thrown around a lot, and last year I looked a lot into Steve Omess, and it really like switched my opinion on him because I didn't know much about him before, and it showed just how dominant he was in the early days. And I feel like the same could be said for Huey. As far as the fifth,
well, Huey's a little after Steve, but
sure.
But sure.
As far as the fifth spot goes, I really want to vote for Chapin there, but I'm still not 100% sure. We'll see what happens. So.
Yeah, I mean, I look at there's a bunch of people that have similar stats, right? Mark Herberholz, Pat Chapin, Osip, Eugene Harvey. I mean, you could put Billy has similar stats to those guys. Justin Gary, I think, has a very you can make a case for Justin Gary pretty legit. I mean, a lot of those guys have the same kind of stats. It then becomes okay, what else are you doing? Which is why I look at Huey and his stats are competitive with the people you're going to wind up voting for anyway. So the fact that he did it in just 10 less Pro Tours than everybody else and was perceived to be just as good as anybody playing the game puts him over the top. It's similar to the Steve-O argument, honestly. I mean, a lot of the Steve-O argument is, in the late 90s, he was in the top 2 or 3. There's a stretch of 3-4 years where he's in the top 2 or 3 guys, and there weren't as many Grand Prix around at the time. You couldn't quite rack up the same gaudy pro point totals, but he was one of the first guys to travel to Grand Prix. So. Yeah,
it's really hard to adjust for inflation because looking at the old tournaments and the new tournaments, right? Because you used to have way fewer Grand Prix and events and such like that gave out pro points, and now you have a Grand Prix almost every weekend. All kinds of things are going on.
Yeah, and the points on Grand Prix have gone up steadily. It's not even one cutoff, right? I mean, it used to be there were no pro points, and then it was, 6 for a win, now it's 8 for a win, and they go deeper. It keeps changing.
Yeah, so...
Points on Nationals now, too, right?
Yeah, points on Nationals, and obviously, players, there's more incentive. There's Pro Players Club. They can travel around the world. An interesting player that seems to get brought up every year, and there's a lot of discussion about, Scott Johns. Now, you had the opportunity to work with Scott for a while. He has said 5 Pro Tour top 8s, is that correct?
He does.
But they were all at the early end of the Pro Tour, so that's one of the guys who the adjust for inflation kind of thing really takes a hit on. What's your stance on that?
I mean, Scott's a great guy. I think that you've got to give him a lot of credit for his contributions running websites as well. But I mean, as a player in the early years, I mean, it was the Wild West. You look at the early years of the Pro Tour, and Mike Long has a great record. Mark Justice, I think, actually might have the best statistical case on the ballot. But I mean, those guys are just people don't necessarily give them full credit. I think some people discount the early Pro Tours because they feel like competition wasn't as tough, and then other people just look at these guys didn't have the most sterling reputations as players, and so I mean you see that nobody's talking about Katsuhiro Mori either. I mean, look at maybe they got suspended, maybe they didn't get suspended. I mean, a lot of people go on reputations more than actual suspensions. So I mean, Scott's reputation from the early years is not great. That's why he's sitting there. There's only 3 guys on the ballot with 5 top 8s, and look, I think Scott's contribution to the Pro Tour overall clearly well in the positive, but I mean, those early years were kind of, he was not a fan favorite, not a player favorite.
Fair enough. Well, you brought up Mori, and speaking of Japanese players, how do you feel about Tsuyoshi Ikeda? That's someone that Zach Hill talked to me a lot about the other day. He was telling me about, how he really led the charge of Japanese Magic in some areas. He's, I think, 3 Pro Tour top 8s, is that correct? 3 or 4 Pro Tour top 8s?
3 or 4. It might be up to 4.
Might be up to 4 now.
Maybe it's 3.
After Austin, but
the case for Ikeda is very similar to the case for Bram Snapfingers last year. Like, I think that I don't have a problem with Bram being in the Hall of Fame. I didn't personally vote for Bram last year. I mean, I get it. I like it. I mean, I'm happy to see the Hall of Fame acknowledge longevity and community building. But for me, the longevity stats aren't that impressive. I mean,